especially thinking about like how much Starship can bring and just the frequency of launches we're seeing now, right? Like a launch every 3 days is just mind blowing. Like how much stuff is going to space. And I know a lot of it's just Starlink satellites today.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of other like satellite and space startups coming up. And I was listening to one that's doing where they extend the longevity of satellites. So their satellite on a single booster. So they have some crazy physics to figure out how to do this, where they can get approach to another satellite and then just push it a bit further out into orbit.
Wicked.
Which when they're in orbit, and the guy was kind of explaining, moving at 25,000 miles an hour or something like this.
Really fast.
It's like when you approach another satellite, you got to touch it and not damage it is quite the feat to trying to accomplish there.
That's fantastic. No, the other thing is like I was in Florida with on family vacation, and I heard the double sonic boom as the shuttle re-entered the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine what that constant every 3 days is doing to property value in that area. But even the
if you like rockets, it must be going up. There's a very small demographic of people that want to live there, I think.
That's right. But triple pane glass sales is going through the roof.
I'm sure.
Welcome back to another episode of Nerding Out with Cold War Technology. I'm Craig Bergman.
I'm Derek Mathewson.
Today we're going to talk about NASA, SpaceX, the heavy booster landing, as well as how we enable our operators to have remote operation centers. Over the last couple of weeks, we had the SpaceX Starship landing. That was caught. I watched a couple of clips, TikTok and whatnot, and a friend showed me one. And I watched one from SpaceX's perspective with really nice, clean, crisp video, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I watched somebody had shot a clip live on their phone of it landing, and I could just hear the enthusiasm, and people are cheering, yeah, because it didn't explode, or maybe they're hoping for it to explode, and they were cheering to hide their sadness that they didn't get to see a Jerry Springer episode, but. We have Derek. Why don't you kick us off about SpaceX and NASA?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this one. I've been a big fan of SpaceX and just like the space industry, and I think what we've seen in the last 10 years when SpaceX and Virgin have like been able to land rockets now is pretty incredible. And with Starlink coming out and all these things at SpaceX and all these different new startups coming into the space now are able to do, I think with the Starship landing is another one of those like this is a really big significant step in this direction. And like I think I saw things like the Starship is going to be able to bring I'm going to quote it wrong, is it 100 tons or 150 tons of cargo each launch. So it's just going to expand what the Falcon Heavies are already doing today.
That's fantastic. Yeah, the heavy booster they're saying is the largest booster, or the Starship itself is the Falcon Heavy is the largest spacecraft, or can carry the most amount of mass into orbit. Mm-hmm. And of course, like when I was young, I went to Cape Kennedy and I stood in the nozzle of the Saturn V rocket. And that's enormous. That's building size. So I couldn't imagine the size of Starship or the heavy booster.
Yeah, it's bigger than the Saturn V, largest in history. I think the Artemis that NASA's working on is bigger, but they haven't launched that one yet.
Can we get a fact check? Artemis size versus heavy.
We pull that up. Yeah, I saw a few stats about SpaceX. Recently listening to the Acquired podcast, they talk about SpaceX. They have a great one. And they were mentioning the last year SpaceX did 98 launches, something like this. And this year they're on track to do 118 of the Falcon Heavy.
That is insanity. That's
crazy.
One every 3 days?
One every 3 days, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. So the Starship Super Heavy is just a little bit bigger.
It is.
60, 70 feet taller than the Artemis 1.
That's pretty significant.
That's a lot of million pounds of thrust.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So just for our viewers at home, we're looking at a screen. Starship has almost double the amount of thrust as the Artemis rocket, which is fantastic. I was watching a Smarter Everyday clip where Dustin is talking to the NASA Artemis team, and was asking the question, how many Artemis rockets do you need to get into orbit, or how many Artemis launches do you need to accomplish our next lunar mission? And the actual mission plan called for, I think, 3. And then Dustin ran through the engineered calculations with slippage and the mass and the amount of, because they're launching and then they're refueling in space, which requires more rocket launches. And I think he said somewhere between 12 and 16 launches to actually do the next lunar mission. Yeah. Which is so rad. I'm excited for the robots to get up there, for the Falcon Heavy to launch payload and have the base self-assemble. Yeah. Before our astronauts get there. Oh yeah, no, it's they found water on the moon. I think that's the big play, is to try and get there and start harvesting the water and make hydrogen, and then you can refuel and create rockets themselves. About 5-6 years ago, they were talking that the lunar soil composition is the same minerals that are in the solar panels. Oh. So like there's even potential to do some type of autonomous terraforming of the moon to actually create solar panels and have it generating electricity. But in the same article, they said the leading idea about how to get this power to Earth was with a concentrated microwave array. Yeah. And I'm not excited about a whole band of microwaved Earth. That doesn't sound like the best plan to me, but who am I to say? What's important to you, Derek, about the Starship landing? Like, what really captures you? How does that bring us to the next generation of space exploration? Well, this is a good one. So there's a chart. Can you search this and we look at it? And it's the cost per kilogram to get something into space. So if you look back, the space shuttle was around $25,000 per kilogram, and SpaceX's Falcon Heavy is about $1,000. So we're already at that $1,000. And what this is saying, estimated for Starship, is going to be around that $200 mark. That's insane. So if we're looking in the early 60s or in the mid 60s, the Saturn V sitting at just shy of $6,400 a kilogram. So we have the Saturn V is sitting at around $5,000 to $6,000 a kilogram. The Falcon Heavy is, so this is a logarithmic chart on the left. The Falcon Heavy is at 1,600 and the Starship is at almost 200. That's incredible. Especially thinking about like how much Starship can bring and just the frequency of launches we're seeing now, right? Like a launch every 3 days is just mind-blowing, like how much stuff is going to space. And I know a lot of it's just Starlink satellites today. Yeah. But I know there's a lot of other like satellite and space startups coming up. And I was listening to one that's doing where they extend the longevity of satellites. So their satellite on a single booster, so they have some crazy physics to figure out how to do this, where they can get approach to another satellite and then just push it a bit further out into orbit. Wicked. Which, when they're in orbit, and the guy was kind of explaining, moving at 25,000 miles an hour or something like this. Really fast. It's like when you approach another satellite, you got to touch it and not damage it is quite the feat to trying to accomplish there. That's fantastic. No, the other thing is like I was in Florida with on family vacation, and I heard the double sonic boom as the shuttle re-entered the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. I cannot imagine what that constant every 3 days is doing to property value in that area. That's nerd out right there. All right, so that's news, and let's bring it back to our headline. So what are we talking about today? Today we're going to talk about remote operation centers in the completion space in oil and gas, and what's going on there, and why that's becoming more headline news for operators in North America. So why would an operator look at engaging or turning on a remote operation center? I think it's towards optimization and efficiency, right? So we've seen in the last decade, frac really taking off in the early 2000s, and in the last especially in the last several years,
operators have gotten really good at this, and pumping hours went from like 12 to 14 hours a day to now like 20 to 24 hours a day. And so the operators are getting good at this, and it's just about squeezing out more juice of this thing and optimizing it where it's, becoming more seamless. And one step in that is centralizing where that data goes and centralizing where that decisions are made. And so by building an ROC, I think opens up the opportunity to put everybody that has a decision to be made on this job in the same room where they can collaborate and work together and think about how, what else they can do, what other techniques they can apply, if they're going to try new technologies. They're all in the same room learning together, right? It's not one group or one team trying out a technology. They're trying them out together.
Gotcha. Yeah, because what was it, 10, 15 years ago, if you enter into a new piece of rock that you want to frack, it's, well, here are the things we've tried in the past. Let's see how the rock responds to that. Yeah. And then see what type of hydrocarbon you can get out of it. Now it's shortening the gap from hypothesis to actual result.
Yeah, I think there's probably a side of that, but I think the main one is like we know what we're doing, and like, almost cookie cutter. We're going to optimize our designs a bit and our well spacing, but we're not trying to change the game here too much. We're trying to get sand in the stages as fast as we can and move on to the next one, because we know what we're doing and that we're making profitable wells. Like let's just up our speed and reduce the amount of time it takes to do these things and the amount of people potentially required to discuss and to make these decisions.
Understood. So you actually wrote a white paper on this?
Yes, I did. So this is we wrote a white paper in anticipation for this. I think at Cold War we're really excited about being able to enable operators to build these ROCs and be able to take better control and centralize these decisions. Excellent. So one of the things we hear about in ROC, well, there's one, there's two sides, right? There's like, here's the benefits. Benefits, you can centralize. You might be able to reduce the number of people needed. So an OSR and an ROC might be able to watch 2, maybe 3 jobs, maybe 4, right? Like this is kind of a new thing, but I think 2 to 3 is something reasonable to achieve in the short term. But the negative side, right? What's the downside, or what are people kind of not buying into this, right? And I think a lot of people see, or some people see, like there's a lot of value to having an OSR in the field who can make these decisions and is talking to guys on site and knows what's going on, right? It really has his hands and control over this. But to me, I think that's a bit of a misconception, because on site, we often, on a lot of operators we work with, we see they have multiple OSRs on site. We have somebody watching frac and watching wireline, or someone's doing logistics with sand. I think we're seeing, especially with simul-fracs coming out more and more common, these sites are getting bigger. They're doing more wells at the same time. They're getting more complicated, and you have multiple OSRs. And so building an ROC is a way to keep things more simple, right? You still probably want an OSR in the field, but he doesn't have to watch everything, right? He doesn't have to do all the reporting, deal with all the documentation of the data and everything like that. So,
Derek, what are the requirements for an ROC from a technological standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things where I think we take for granted how good our internet is today and how good a lot of these systems are. And when we're talking about a remote site, especially like a frac, I always like to think of frac sites as like, it's like a factory. You have to stand up every time. So after 20 days, we've got to turn this factory off. We've got to take all the equipment apart, and then we move it, and then we build it all back up together again. And the nice thing with a factory is in a normal factory, you don't have to break it down. So connecting these pieces is, it's still complicated, but it doesn't have this additional complexity. And so when we're talking about the ROC, one of those big requirements is that it is easily, like you can easily move it. It can connect to all these different service companies. Something that needs to be done, be able to ingest that data from every service company or any piece of equipment on site. And operators want to have the ability to change out service companies, right? They have for different technology, they offer different performance. Part of the ROC and gathering all this data is picking the best equipment and the best service companies you want to work with, and having that ability. So being able to easily change, as from a data perspective, is very important, right? Because if I don't want to get tied into one frac company And then to move to another frac company isn't as simple as picking up the phone and changing the fleet. I have to now work with their, data integration team or something like this, and it adds a lot of complexity and a lot of change management.
I would assume just one frac fleet leaves, another frac fleet comes in, and we plug it in. Is it not the case?
And that is the case for cold bore, and that's one of the things that why we built our system. But that's something that needs to be built into that ROC system is making that easily integratable, or else that's going to be a complexity, right? You're going to just make change management and this effort needed if you ever want to change service or equipment.
That's right, because every operator and every service provider that's on a frac site, maybe they're really good at pumping water or they have super good boxes of sand. They build technological solutions for their own hurdles, not necessarily for the operator's hurdles. So they'll have a SCADA system to monitor or sample a minute for how much sand. And then when they show up to location and the operator in cold bore shows up to location, the operator says, well, where's our sample a second data? Or can you even get data from this company? With all the different protocols, and we've touched on this in the past with the streaming services or queuing services or caching services, etc. Everybody has their own flavor and language that needs to be spoken to bring this data into a centralized database for the ROC to handle.
Yeah, absolutely right. So if you want to change your sand provider, or for like your sand silos, or you want to change your frac provider, and then you okay, how do I get this data? And they're here's a new API with different. It's not that you can't build it or can't use this, but now that you have to take time, right? You have to use your internal resources to connect to this new API thing, connection, or to some other serial stream or whatever is available from that provider.
Yeah, a new structure, a new header, maybe your CRC's off.
And that's change management, right? And that makes the effort to change these equipment and service just that much greater and that much harder to do.
Gotcha. Tell me about some of the challenges with real-time data.
Yeah, so some of the, if you want your ROC to run, as I was kind of saying, that we take for granted how good our internet is that on site, there's these complexities that exist that we have to account for. And so one of them is, we call it network redundancy. And so if I'm calling a frac remotely, I need to get this data in under 2 seconds, because we know subsurface conditions change quickly, and someone wants to call frac or call wireline remotely. We need that data in under 2 seconds, and we need that data reliably. We run operations 24 hours a day. If the internet's down for any reason, that's going to make huge implications to how we're running these and make it so an ROC just has no opportunity to be successful, right? It can't be down. And obviously there's always things. 99.99 is something that is achievable, but nothing can be 100%, right? There's always going to be those cases that'll come up. But that's why we build network redundancy. The chance of multiple nodes being down simultaneously is very unlikely. And so part of that network redundancy is building to build redundancy of data persistence. So having data collected on site. So if internet's down, you still capture that data. Another piece is being able to directly connect to the on-site servers that are grabbing that data. So instead of going through your cloud servers or through a cloud database, you can directly, create a VPN connection to this edge service. In the case that your cloud server goes down, AWS goes down, I think I've seen it go down 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years, right? So they have their hiccups, right? As well as Azure has their hiccups. And if you're relying on this, especially to call frac, that's a lot of money on the line, a lot of potential issues there. So building that network redundancy at every node of how your data is coming through and getting to that ROC is very critical to build having a really successful ROC, being able to do their jobs well.
And does data quality impact us at all?
Oh, absolutely. I think data quality, thinking about the data ingestion and how we get that data there, it doesn't mean much if it's wrong, right? Or if sensors get miscalibrated and you're not noticing these things, right? Data quality is even more critical and more important, right? Especially as we see, an OSR who's monitoring multiple jobs, he doesn't, he needs to be able to trust that data that's coming in. And so having good data quality and having good workflows around how to correct that data quality, how to catch those things is going to be critically important for the ROC. You got some sneezes in the
Bless you.
background.
Yeah, could we get those sneezes edited out, please?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Sort
Yeah.
of quiet on
Let's
set.
restart the whole thing.
Great.
Everyone's got it.
Okay, so SpaceX. So kind of talking about the network redundancy, I talked a bit about being able to connect directly to the edge and why it's important for us to have data persistence on the edge. But I know Starlink was a big effort on our side. Can you speak a bit to what's kind of going down on the Starlink side of the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we have other YouTube clips on the Cold War channel that talk about our Dish in a Box project. But when Starlink first started launching their low Earth orbit satellites, it was super exciting. At the time we were looking at getting HughesNet licenses, and to do a satellite dish install on a frac pad, you actually needed an FCC license, if I'm not mistaken, to actually turn that on. And that's to be certified through HughesNet to set up one of their sats, which is like one of the largest satellite providers in the United States. That's why we didn't do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So what we had done was we had multiple SIM cards, super fancy gateway boxes, a whole bucket of different antennas we could bust out to actually get cellular, because the places that our operators are fracking is, of course, not known for its wideband coverage, I guess.
Yeah.
So low Earth orbit Starlink satellites started popping up in the sky, and we got a couple to try out. And of course, these are fantastic dishes for a home. You pound it onto a fence post, you're rocking. But when you tear it down and transport it from pad to pad every couple of days, every month, every couple of months, and it's operating in like the grossest environment or conditions possible, where there's like one site I showed up to do an inspection and the whole site was just covered in stuff. Like it was just I would like to say grease or mud or something had happened that covered it in black goo. So having that on top of a Starlink dish or on top of a satellite receiver is probably not the best for signal. And also there's motors inside that pivoted and adjusted so you could get the best signal at any given time. Of course, we looked at this and we said, well, this is a great commercial or residential application or residential device, but it's not an industrial device. So we did some modifications. And not only did we remove some of the weaknesses, for example, the motor, we just cut that right out. But we also brought it up to our IT security standards. Thank you. Not only did we fix some of the hardware problems, like we cut out the motors so it didn't try to point, etc., but we also brought it up to our IT security standards, so not just anybody could walk by, see an SSID broadcast. We changed it so it's on our own VPNs and our own IP addresses, etc. But we also have a auto failover cellular redundancy against the Starlink satellites. So there were a couple of outages where Starlink was out for, I don't know, a minute, an hour, 10 minutes, something in that zone. Everybody on site is excited, but the Cold War personnel never saw a drop in our internet. Actually, it was so little of a deal to us. The next morning, we forgot to bring it up in our morning meeting. It was just, yeah, business as usual. We're good to go. So that's the whole point of node redundancy. Like if we have a global Starlink outage or for a minute or 5 minutes and you're trying to call a frac, it's not like we can call Starlink and say, when are your satellites coming back up? We're relatively small fish compared to that. So we just need to plan around the eventual outages that are going to happen.
Yeah, it was an exciting time at Cold War when that happened, and knowing that our system did fail over correctly and we didn't have any outages. It's a great battle testing, right? And I think that highlights, really importantly, why network redundancy is important, why these security things, protocols are important, that we protect the network on site. Having SSO and be able to track who has access to the data. These are like really important pieces of an ROC that you don't think about when I want to call a frac remotely. Let's put a Raspberry Pi there and connect it. It's like, okay, that might work. Yeah, that might work for 5 minutes, but it's not a holistic system that's going to work for, especially, some of the largest operators in the world with some of the most critical oil and gas infrastructure in the world, right? Like we need to have, strong systems that are robust and have proper security around them.
That's right. So Derek has produced and published this white paper. Please give it a read if you want to go by the Cold War website. Anything in closing? Any closing statements on that, Derek?
Yeah, I think I want to plug SmartPad a little bit here, and why not just like what makes ROC good, and obviously we've built these network redundancies in place as well. On top of the system we've had, commercially available for years that integrates all the data, provides a single timestamp, which is, not provided by a lot of other services. So that's a very key piece of the data quality that we bring in. We centralize this data into a single collection on site, and we automate a lot of the reporting, right? So not that, maybe not super necessary for ROC, but a big benefit on top of, just a static ROC system is being able to, have all this data synced, have the reporting automated. So with SmartPad, we can automate all of the time log, everything but your NPT time. So your OSRs, even the ROC OSRs, they don't need to enter any of this stuff. They just monitor the jobs, and they're only entering NPT, and they're just, seeing daily reports get pushed out, and they're just conferring that all the data is looking accurate and correct. And then they can bring all that into their well management system or into their own data analytics and pull all of that, time log and stage reporting, everything just in. And that's really what empowers an OSR who's sitting, at an OSR on site. Now he's in an office. Why can he monitor multiple jobs? Like, this is part of the reason, right? By not just getting him in an office, but simplifying his job and simplifying his workflows, where he's not doing, entering time logs. That's pretty mundane, right? Like doing this mundane work. He just gets to monitor the job and use his technical expertise to do what he wants to do, right? And make the best stages and make the best wells he can.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you have another white paper coming out in the near future about automated time log?
Yes, I do. So that was a little plug toward the future. So that we'll talk more on the automated reporting in the next podcast. So there's a little teaser for the next podcast to keep you guys interested.
Wicked. Don't forget to like and subscribe to videos. Make sure to reach out to Cold War Technology if SmartPad's something that you would like on one of your frac sites. Where we're going next is, as per the last podcast, we're going to do a meme response. Derek, you want to open us up? What are we looking at today?
This is a great one. This one's shared by Alex, and we didn't mention Alex is not here today, as you probably noticed from this whole podcast. He is off doing the CTOs do, which I have no idea what that is.
Important CTO stuff. But he shared this one, so he was excited. He saw these Shia LaBeouf put up this flag. What's the flag say again? So this is actually I did a little looking into this over the last few days, and this is a 3-parter, and we're jumping to part 3. So I guess Shia LaBeouf had a big "He will not divide us" thing. Now, this isn't a political podcast. This is a technology podcast. So we're going to glance over why or what or how. But as you know, as there were some rallies or some people interrupting what Shia was trying to accomplish, whether it's good or bad, doesn't matter to us. Shia got a little bit more creative in his political display. So the first one is fairly public in the middle of a city. The second one, I believe, was on a rooftop or in a very private location. And the third one is Shia found it was actually a rooftop in the middle of nowhere that Shia put a big "He will not divide us" flag, and he put a live stream showing it on the internet. Mm-hmm. So then there's some people at this place called 4chan. What is 4chan?
I think 4chan's like the OG Reddit.
Right.
That's where
big news feed.
Yeah, forums, and I don't know. I've never used it, but I think that's where OG Reddit started, and then Reddit took over.
I'm stuck on the 3rd chan. I haven't got it to the next one. So yeah, the users on 4chan, they didn't like the flag, or they saw it as a challenge. Can you find the flag? So let's have a look at what Mr. Rogan has to tell us.
What the 4chan guys did was fucking amazing. This is what they did. Shia LaBeouf put up a flag said he will not divide us, and then had a live stream. You could go and look at the flag. They found the fucking flag. They found out where it was. And the way they found it was genius. They went around. They had one of their members go around with a car and beep the horn so they could hear the horn on the camera. And once they heard the horn on camera, then they knew he was there. So then they found out where it is by stars. They looked at the fucking stars and they figured out where the area is. They went to the fucking flag, took it down, put a Make America Great Again hat on and a Pepe the Frog thing up there, and the guy walks up to the camera and goes, fuck Shia LaBeouf.
So this is actually neater than what Joe Rogan said. So in the videos that I was looking at and the other things to make sure this was actually relevant, the flag from when they put it up until they found it was less than 24 hours.
Holy shit.
Just days entering the school years.
was less than 24 hours.
That's
and
incredible.
the people on 4chan, they started analyzing the contrails from the planes to identify flight patterns. And one guy started getting up and trying to identify the specific species of cricket that they heard in the background as the flag was waving during the night. And he was trying to identify the location of the flag by, I'm not going to say echolocation, but by this is where the cricket exists. And then they started driving around and hitting the horn to find exactly the location. Like they really got involved in this flag finding mission.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they really captured that flag.
I'm so impressed by that. That's crazy. The FBI should hire them or something.
Wow.
That or these guys have too much free time. I don't know who has time to look up cricket sounds and try and geolocate cricket areas to help find a flag.
Oh, I think that's
That's a good hobby, I guess.
So fantastic. But it's just the idea of using like 5 or 6 pieces of disparate information to come towards a conclusion remotely and then have that impact a real life thing. Oh, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah, I love that.
I am pretty sad though. You know, I see we're almost hitting 200 views on our first no comments. Mm-hmm. So I'd really like, just rolling into the outro here. Please like and subscribe. I know I mentioned it earlier. Reach out to Colbor if we could impact your completions operation. You know, we do have these podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So please give us a look. Please hit a like, subscribe, hit the alarm bell to watch any upcoming notices. Drop a comment about your favorite takeaway, or if there's something else you'd really like. You know, really excited to see that first comment. Actually, I'm going to comment as soon as I leave right now. Yeah, and make sure to stay tuned for the next episode. I'm Craig Bergman. This is
Derek Mathewson.
Thank you so much.
Data in hand. We rock the bytes and we'll take a stand. Calculators flashing like a disco